Welcome to those of you that are just joining us for the first time. We're in the middle of a 30-day run called Empowerment Through Awareness, where we're taking one question a day from our very successful mentorship program and taking an hour to really dig in and dissect it. We've been here, what's today, Monday?
It's like day 14.
Day 12, right?
No, because we reset. Oh, yeah.
We started on a Wednesday, so
Yeah,
today's
yeah.
like day 12. Yeah, because Wednesday will be 14. And so we're excited. Let's see. It's 12 o'clock now. So today's question is, what's the one thing, although we can use one loosely, what's the thing you'd like others to remember about you at the end of your life? And as always, I did a little bit of research. One of the things I looked up first is, why would we want to be remembered? Why do people care if anybody remembers them at the end of their life, right? So one of the reasons that people want to be remembered is so that they feel loved. Some people want to be remembered positively after death, just to have a sense of that they were liked or loved by others while they were alive. And I guess not that you'll be here to tell, but that's one of the things that motivates people, is by wanting to have been liked or loved by the people that they impacted or that they knew in their lives. Some people want to be remembered to have made a better life for their children or grandchildren. The example was given that it may be harder for someone to find a job if they're the son or daughter of a well-known convicted criminal, right? So living a good life and being remembered well for it, some of that motivation can come from wanting to make sure that you leave the people after you an easier time of it, right? A better time, because they're, who came before them was a good person. So that was an interest. I had never thought of that. And then simply to fight the fear or anxiety around death, thinking about positive ways that we might be remembered, or ways that we might be remembered, is simply a way of fending off our fear or anxiety about what's coming, or the fact that, because what do they say? Those are the two guaranteed things, right? Death and taxes, right? Like, we're all going to die at some point. That's going to happen to every single one of us. And so for some people, it's anxiety producing just to think about. So in some ways, to tell a story. Some people wish to tell a personal story for future generations. They see themselves as a hero or a protagonist of their own life story, and they wish that story to be known forward after they pass. And in some ways, it's difficult for people to imagine a future in which they don't exist. So imagining what people will say or want to say about you makes it easier to imagine that future, right? You just don't die and go poof into oblivion. Like, people remember you afterwards, and that eases the sense of what will come afterwards, I think, for some people. So that was some of the research around that. And then I looked up a bunch of stuff about how do we want to be remembered. And put your thinking caps on, because I want you guys to help us too. Let me get this out so I can see you closer to me without my...
I think we need the charger. The red charger there?
No, the red charger stopped working.
It stopped working?
Yeah, it wasn't working to anything it was plugged into.
Well, that's not fun.
No, agreed. But we can do this one.
Yeah, I'll put this here on your
Pull
side.
it close. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get it running.
Awesome. So there was a great quote from Rosa Parks that said, "I would like to be remembered as a person who wanted to be free so other people would be also free," which I thought was a great quote. And then the truth is we won't all be remembered as being famous people, right? Like, all of us won't go down in history as some of the people that we all think about, the famous people throughout time, right? But what would we be remembered for? What do we want to be remembered for, right? One of the things that I came up was being remembered for having been authentic. And one of the ways that you can do that is by sharing your true self with other people. That's how people will remember you as authentic, is if you show up authentically in your life now, right? Having been a loving person. One of the ways that we get to be remembered as being a loving person. All of these things, if you want to be remembered a certain way, show up and be that way in your life now. And then how do we do that? We spend time with loved ones. We make sure we carve out time for them. we remember to just call them or text them or just remind them that we're here and that we love them. You're really good at that.
Which one?
And I always feel like you're good at like texting back with people or touching base so that people know. I've often heard you say, oh, I got in touch with so-and-so. I haven't talked to them in a while. Different people pop up in your life. And I know that I think you don't think you do that. But I think you do. Just saying.
Okay.
It's warm.
It is warm.
I was my hair. So we're not dying during this call.
Yes.
And in some ways we want to be thought of as being thoughtful, right? So how do we do that? We act in thoughtful ways. We think of what others need. Now and after you're gone, give in small ways, leave some funds for college for people, younger people in your family, maybe give away heirlooms or even sentimental pieces to those who would appreciate them. And you can do that stuff, like you don't have to just do that in a will, right? You can do that before it comes down to that. You can let people know what of your belongings that you noticed that they liked. Like my grandmother had teeth sets and she'd done a lot of embroidery and things like that. And different people in my family always liked the different things. So before she passed, she made it clear who she was giving what to. And then I think the other thing that's thoughtful, and we forget to do this, is to make arrangements for and pay for your funeral so that the people who you leave behind don't have to.
I want them to remember me for the bills.
For the bills for your funeral? Very funny. Okay, so...
I'm kidding.
I know. So let's see, what do we want to be remembered for? A source of joy and laughter, a caring and supportive friend, an advocate for kindness. For me, I would like to be remembered is for positive influence, guidance that you had on them, a lifelong learner, a creative spirit. Boy, I'm going to be out of things soon because those are all on my list. Positive light, it's the little things that matter. So those are all some great things that people want to be remembered by. Welcome. Hi, Valixen. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Hi, Samantha. Nice to have you back. I enjoyed your comments. One of the ways we can be remembered is for our talents or our skills, right? If you sing, if you're an artist, if you're really good at helping other people, if you were a writer, anything you were good at, maybe you want to be remembered for being good at those things, right? Being able to make people laugh. I think that's a great thing. I have a thing about being able to make people laugh.
She's funny. She is funny.
But only sometimes. And sometimes I'm not. And then sometimes I hear other people laughing, and here we go back to the comparison and the contrasting, and I think, I wish I was not funnier, but I really, what I realize is I place a great value on being able to make people laugh. We were talking about that, how laughter changes your physiology. Like when you laugh really hard, you can go from feeling not good to feeling better. And so to be able to make people laugh, I think is a wonderful quality. And
you do make people laugh.
And I wouldn't feel bad if somebody said that about me at the end of my life. As I was compiling this list, I kept saying to myself, Kat, this question says, what do you want to be remembered for? So you better come up with what you want to be remembered for. And I've been struggling all morning with that. So different virtues or qualities. Do you want to be remembered for your wit? Or for...
You'll be remembered for your hospitality. You'll be remembered for how you hold space. You'll be remembered for how you show up and you speak in the space that you hold. You'll be remembered for compassion and kindness. You'll be remembered for your maternal energy, especially among all the gay men in your life. That's easily 5.
Wow. So here's a good exercise. If you're not sure, go ask someone who knows you how you'll be remembered at the end of your life, because this is way easier than me trying to think it up my, and probably more accurate, because you see me more accurately from the outside than I see myself from the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that if we're going to do turnabout as fair play, I think that you will be remembered for how deeply you care about people, how much you love. I think you'll be cared for or remembered for sometimes saying the hard things. You'll be remembered for your larger than life energy and your incredible creativity. You'll be remembered for being funny. You'll also be remembered for your tattoos.
That's nor a skill or a talent.
But it's part of who you are, and it's part of how you've woven your life together, and it's a way that people know you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Actually, yesterday, this homeless guy stopped me for money. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't." And he said, "Is that an owl tattoo?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he said something very... I have to think about it. But it was impactful, what he said. It was along the lines of that other homeless woman on the train that one time, that she sat down and I asked her, I said, "How are you doing?"
I remember
that?
I remember that.
And she looked at me, she goes, "I'm tired."
Yeah.
And I said, "I feel you."
Like, as if for the first time someone sat down and asked her how she was doing and listened like they cared what she would have to say.
Yeah.
It gave her and you do that. Your ability to interact with people, your ability to connect with people you don't even know, and bring value to them, even if it's a question on the train.
But that's what we do, Mama.
No, it's not what everybody does. Not everybody. You have a particular gift for being that way and for connecting with people. It's awe-inspiring.
So maybe they'll remember me for my eye tattoo. What's next? About being able, that's right, you went down this. I'm the guy that likes to bring humor into situations that are too serious.
Mm-hmm.
Or that need an edge off because of how intense it is.
Yeah.
Funny story, inadvertently funny. I was at a friend's house in Staten Island, and her grandmother just died, and we were downstairs cleaning out the basement where her grandmother lived. And this is like 24 hours after she passed. And, they wanted to get it out before the grief hit and shit like that. Right. So I'm down there cleaning up with them, and the mom comes down and she goes, "Hey, would you like some cake and milk?" So I look at her, I said, "No, ma'am." I said, "This is the last nail in the coffin as I'm tying the last bag." Dude, I was so embarrassed. But they stopped, they froze. My friend and her mom froze. And then they just started to laugh. And they were like, "Oh my God, we needed that so much." And
it only would have been funny that you didn't do it on purpose. That's what made it funny, that you did it by accident.
And the shame, because I immediately exited stage left.
Yeah. Like, you're never going to lose that fidget spinner, just so you know. But it's kind of cute. Yeah. So other qualities like honesty, being trustworthy, those are things to be remembered for. Integrity and loyalty are very important qualities for me all the time, and I won't mind if people remember me. There are qualities that I value, and there are qualities that I aspire to. So if I get to the end and people say they can remember me for those, I would feel very like I had achieved a goal. So at any rate,
I can't help everyone, only make them feel like we care.
Yeah,
that's a good
one. True. That's true.
Is there any value for considering our regrets now? Maybe as room for growth?
Oh, sure, absolutely. If thinking about what you regret now provides an opportunity to do something about it.
Or if it's like a regret in choice that you can't change, take into consideration what have you learned from that experience. Mm-hmm. What did you learn?
And how will it impact your decision making going
moving
forward?
Yep.
Right? So it still has the ability to positively affect the choices that you make now?
Being someone that adds value to their life and adds happiness. I must be a billionaire in a submarine because you made my heart implode.
I know, that's funny. Yeah. I already did.
Thank you, Mom.
Did you do it in both places? Okay.
I have no idea, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, but why not, right? Another thing people want to be remembered for how they showed up in their relationships. Are they remembered for being a good parent? Were they a good friend? Were they a good boss or coworker? You know, people who really value their careers. Was I a good boss to the people who worked under me?
That's huge for me.
Yeah.
Is to be a good boss. Staff Sergeant Eisbert, he was the best guy I've ever worked for. He cared. He was firm. He was loving. He was accepting. He was a good human being. He was of traditional values, which had him govern a certain way. Respectful and respectable. And he got shit on by the upper ranks because he wasn't a yes person. They forced him out after 20 years because they wouldn't promote him, because he wasn't a company man. But he was a man of morals and character, upstanding character, and it's like, I'd take a bullet for that man today.
Wow. That's a big thing to say about somebody.
He's an incredible man. And so what you just said about leadership and being someone just who holds positive space.
Yeah. In the times that I've been in charge of people, I that matters to me too. That I'm good at that in a way that is because I care about the people who are under me, that I care about the people that I'm in charge of caring for.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not, I'm the boss of the boss of us, now the boss of me. But as we build this out, I want to continue to be that kind of person that people feel good that they worked for. This last comment, author Reynolds, only caring about how you're remembered by your kids. A lot of the research that I did, there were comments like, I don't care how anybody remembers me. I only care about how my kids remember me. So different people have different ideas about what it even means to be remembered, or if it matters to them that they're remembered.
Yeah.
So that was real too for people. Having been and brought positivity into the world is a way to want to be remembered. Were you a positive person, and did you do kind and thoughtful things? Did you make a positive impact?
Now, as you're talking about this, what it makes me think about is funerals. Mm-hmm. When people come up and all they do is talk about the good stuff that the person did, right? Because we had a friend who one of their siblings passed away, and they were asked to speak, and they were like, I have nothing good to say, because they were X, Y, and Z, and it was like yada yada yada. And ultimately, they did speak, and they did find the right words to express their relationship that was honoring their relationship and wasn't painting it a pretty picture.
Over, I have a story like that too.
Yeah.
Right. My dad was a pain in the butt as a human being, and the truth is by the end of his life, he had alienated most of his family. His third wife and I were probably about the only two people that really had anything to do with him. She adored him, and I thank God for that every day. And I did a lot of work to get to the point where I could be okay with him and have a relationship with him of any kind, right? So we found out later in his life that his grandmother had been Jewish, and she'd, come to the United States during the war. And so by history, by inheritance, he was Jewish, even though he didn't know he was Jewish. And his third wife was Jewish. And so it mattered to her that they be able to be buried together when she were to pass later on in life. So we buried him in a Jewish cemetery because he was able to be, because by rights he was Jewish. So I went down from here to Florida, they were in Florida, to the service, and I went prepared to say something, right? But when I got there, the rabbi pulled me right aside, and he was like, well, you'll be the one speaking, right? And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we're going to do the service, and then after everything, and then you're going to say words, right? So I was essentially promoted to keynote speaker of my dad's funeral, on the spot.
No one better.
Well, but I got the white elephant in the room out of the way right away. And I simply started by saying he was not an easy man to be in a relationship with. He just wasn't.
Well, that's why I said not a better person.
Yeah, and I think there was like a sigh of relief that went through. Like my former husband, what am I?
Ex-husband?
Late.
Oh,
That's the
late
word.
husband.
My late husband used to say, everyone is sainted after they die, right? When somebody dies, nobody wants to say a bad word about the person who died, regardless of what their life was like. And in some people's cases, that's just super silly. Like my dad was challenging to be in a relationship with. So I acknowledged it. And then I was able to speak to the things that he did bring of value to people. Very specifically, I made no glowing terms about who he was as a person beyond that. You know, he was a Christmas fanatic. He brought Christmas to people. He was a music fanatic. He gave the gift of music to people. You know, he was survived by his third wife. He had his relatively estranged relationships with all his children. I didn't say any of that, right? I didn't have to say that. It was okay that I started out by saying he was a tough guy to be in a relationship with, and then I could speak to the things of value.
I would like mine to start like that.
Like what?
Say the tough shit up front.
Yeah.
Say he was a fucking knucklehead, stubborn. And then, like, I think I would want something like that.
We'll see how you are when you get to the finish line.
Well, because, like, when you get to the bottom, it says the problems you made or the problems you solved.
Yeah,
Right?
that was late in my research, that some people say there's only two things to be said about you. Either problems you solved or problems you contributed to, problems you made. And that boiled it down.
Oh, yeah, right away.
Yeah.
Right away. And it's like, then it had me thinking about the opposites. Right, for all the stuff that I'm trying to do, mirroring an opposite value, what are the bad things that I've done or the problems I've made, and then the problems I'm trying to fix. Granted, externally they'll look different ways to different people. Some people will be like, oh my God, that's the worst thing in life, and other people will be like, that's it? But that's subjective.
You mean the revelation of the things that you did that were challenging? Like some people will think they're bad things, and some people will think that like they're no big deal.
Yeah. Within their own perspective, their own experience, their own value system. It's completely subjective. But for me, the things that I've done that were bad, they go to the ends of it for me, because those are like my established boundaries around behavior and good and bad, right?
Yeah.
So like if I stole money from my parents, to me that's like horrible. To someone else that could be like, well, at least you didn't fucking kill him, right? So it's like, so.
Well, you can't bring them back to life, but you can always pay them back.
Right? So it's like, just I didn't mean to jump ahead, but that was
That was
very,
impactful
big.
when I saw it. Yeah, Samantha, I feel you. My dad was. I'm being soft about it. My dad was a junior narcissist. He did a lot of bad. He hurt people. He did a lot of not nice things. But you're right. It is up to us to find peace and also be honest, right? And I think that's one of the important points about, like, when they say people remember us at the end of our lives, like, the truth though is that funerals and those rites are for the living, right? Because once we're gone, we're gone. And so what people do or say about us afterwards is mostly for them and not for me, right?
Like, I was anti-funeral for a long time. I was like, just burn me, blah, 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 blah. What I realized, it was 2 summers ago now, 3 summers ago, when my friend passed away, but the family friend passed away. He was like an uncle.
Right.
He was an uncle.
When you went to the place, the viewing.
And it was hot. It was June, July. I was in booty shorts and a tank top. They must have been like, this is his gay lover walking in here for the funeral. But he was my Uncle Louis. And when I got there, I looked at him in the casket from the back, because I wasn't dressed for a funeral shit. I was not dressed for that. But I wanted to go pay my respects. And I didn't know what that meant until I got in there. And I saw him there, and I just wanted to give him my thanks for being a supportive male figure within my life. And just how friendly he was. And he always came, he was the funny guy, always came with jokes, very nice, very, very nice guy. And it's like, I will never forget that, because that, I guess I could say that is, it's affected me. His character, his identity, who he is, how he lived in this world was cool to me.
Yeah.
And I want to emulate that type of energy as I get older. Uncle Josh, yay! Right? Like my nephew and my niece got me that mug, the fun uncle, right? And it was
What
like
is that, Funkle?
the Funkle, yeah.
Funkle. Fun uncle.
And that actually comes off of this picture back here. Here, I'll show you guys. This is a self-portrait I took.
Yeah, I was asleep.
It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. This is a painting of the portrait.
A painting of the photograph.
A painting of the photograph, and it reminded me of my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
That was because he had a big ass beard, Uncle Bobby. And in that photo, I have a big beard, and I said, I want to be remembered like he was, like who he was to me. And coming back to this question, I think it's significant because it inspires people to live in your honor, in your memory.
Yeah. I was also thinking about, I've been hanging out in funeral parlors since I was a wee thing. And one of the things that's true is, that thing where they say, like, if a bunch of blind people are all standing around an elephant, what do they see? Right? Like, does the tail look like the trunk? Does it look like the feet? Like, and the truth is one of the benefits of gathering together at someone's passing is we don't all hold the same memories of the person, right?
Yes.
And it's a great opportunity to share our memories together so that we can all walk away with a fuller sense of who the person was while they were here, right? And in that way, remember them, right? In that way, we can be remembered. So there's a lot of benefits to the living for doing funeral type services or, gatherings, celebrations of life. My mom's husband passed away late last year, and he died like 2 weeks before his 99th birthday. He had a good run. And he was a great man, and he was loved by many, and was a fighter pilot, decided to become a lawyer in his 50s, read all the time. He was one of those kind of people. And my mom finally had a celebration of life for him in the spring, and we were all invited down, and people showed pictures of him, and people told these stories, people who knew him at different periods of his life, including he had 6 adult children, they had spouses, they were all different ages, and they were each able to speak to stories. Like the 2 older kids knew him as a dad that the younger kids didn't know him as, right? Because he had changed, and the way he parents had changed over the course of having 6 children. And they all got to tell the stories all in the same place. So we were all able to bear witness to who he was through the stories of the people that knew him. And we all walked away grateful for having known him and fuller for the experience. And those rites of passages are important. I really think they are. Oh, that's funny, Master Hurricane. I always wondered what that would be like. Your parents owned a funeral home. Yeah, the amount of small town dad died. The amount of people who came to it and told us stories about him through his life that we never knew. It was amazing, right? Like, we don't know, hey Ariel, we don't, there's things we don't know about the people we know.
Yeah.
And a funeral is an awesome opportunity to learn about those things, right? Because I think, like, I'm unaware of the difference between how I was at 20, how I was at 30, 40, 50, like, in terms of how was I seen or perceived or experienced by the people who were around me at those different times versus who I see myself as now and who I hope to be able to be before it's all done, before I get to the finish line. So that's all some really awesome stuff.
So we were at number 5.
Okay.
Having been and brought positivity to the world. Number 6, having been self-aware. Number 7, having loved others, having loved them wholly and completely. Being a person that was kind. Being a person that treated others well. Being a person that was respectful. That did
more good than
more
harm.
good than harm.
Not more harm than good, though, which is how I wrote it.
That you helped others. Remembered for your faith and your commitment to your beliefs.
That's a big one to me.
That you stood out in the crowd and you marched to the tune of your own drum.
You'll be remembered for that.
That you existed.
No, some people say that. I mean, in the different things that I read that were people's firsthand comments, some people are like, it just matters that people remembered that I was. Right? And that's real for some people.
That you suffered with class would say.
That, a lot of us suffer, right? Some people suffer and kick and scream and complain the whole time. And some people suffer with grace.
Suffering with grace.
Yeah.
I do my best to suffer with grace, but it doesn't always work. Especially when it's physical pain.
You're right on time, Ariel. Thanks for coming.
That you shared the wisdom of your experiences so that others would suffer less.
Yeah, and you do that.
I try my best to do that.
Well, because it's a specific belief you have.
Yeah.
That's almost a moral imperative, right? That we all have an obligation to share the wisdom that comes from our individual suffering for the people who come before us to have the opportunity to suffer less.
And suffer less, not that they're not going to have to swim through the fucking fires of hell, but just knowing that there's an end to it removes some of the suffering.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing that there is an end to the other side helps alleviate from some of that suffering. But because you still got to swim through the fucking fires of hell. You still got to swim through the shit.
Yeah, but it's like, like you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right?
No,
like if someone's already suffered it and has come up with a solution, then that's one less thing on my have to suffer through list. Grace, that was really very funny. Grace welcomes those who want to suffer with her. It's a fun suffering with Grace.
I would said in my youth that I wanted to be remembered for being good and impactful, and an impactful presence.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Or being a person that shows up.
That you shared wisdom from your blah blah blah. That you strove to change people's lives. That you helped people. You were compassionate and passionate, a good listener, and held space for others. For your integrity. That you were an achiever that got things done.
That's you.
Easy to talk to, a good friend, a good listener, and didn't take anything for granted.
So that's the list of everything I've written.
Oh, this is for you.
No, this isn't for me. No, these are all the suggested ones. These are not for me. But that'd be a lot for me to want to be remembered for. Those are all the things I came up with to sort of give us fodder for conversation for the rest of the half hour. Those were the things that I saw when I researched that people want to be remembered for.
We had this question on Tuesday, and I was trying to remember what my answer was. And I think I just remembered, and I want to be remembered for having tried my best.
Yeah.
Right? For having gone up and went up to bat every fucking time.
Right.
As much as possible.
Yeah. I think you do. I think you're in it's very likely that that's one of the things you'll be remembered for, because you do that now. Oh, I like that, Mary. I want to be remembered for giving people permission to be confident with themselves. Being someone's peace during their end times. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? How we show up for people, how we help people transition. Yeah. That's a big deal. That's actually a privilege. I've had that privilege a couple different times in my life. And it really does feel like sacred moments to sit with someone when they're that close to the end. By the by.
Master Hurricane, I was doing some of that math too, but I was like, they probably pressed the wrong button. And here he goes. Yes, he did. He says getting knocked down 12 times, standing up 14. I'm like, Now, how could I get up twice? I was doing it in my head.
Okay.
Knock down 12, up 13.
Right, like that's 1 step, 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back. Same kind of thing?
No.
Okay.
Some will remember you well, some won't. I have no control over that.
That's what some people said too when I read it. Like, I don't have any control over what people remember, so what does it matter?
So I don't want people to remember me per se, but I want the work that we do to be remembered.
Yeah.
And remembered in practice and paid forward.
Yeah. And in that way, I mean, if we have to pin it back, that to be remembered for the help, remember for having been a person that helped, that had as my mission to be helpful.
Because as I see it, that legacy is already achieved for you and for me. Like, and anyone else who helps other people in ways that they can learn from it and then pay it forward. And it's like you have affected the wake and the timeline forever because, well, however long people are nice to each other, because of how you've shown up in the world and have helped people. They may not remember your name, but they'll remember your practices.
Oh, thank you.
In turn, probably remember you. But
And
it's the
that's
practice
okay.
that matters to me.
Right, it is the practice that matters, and I don't know, you know, in some ways I don't know that it matters to me so much what people remember. It matters to me that in fact I had an impact, that in fact my life stood for something, that my life mattered. And I suppose though that you know, the measure of that is in the people to whom you mattered. So I suppose there's no getting out of that, no matter how I try. That helps people feel comfortable being themselves and more comfortable in their own skin. That's a gift, right? I mean, how many people struggle with feeling comfortable in their own skin? I do. There are times where I just I'm not feeling comfortable in my own body. And when someone offers a way for that to happen, I feel better. And I value that. Here she goes being teary again. I'm going to try to suck that in today. You guys got plenty of that yesterday. Yes, Samantha, it is the fact that you make a small change. Wow, Grace. Yeah.
My friend just passed away recently, and he knew it was coming, terminal cancer, and he told me.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny. We don't, he had the talent of seeing you, accepting that even if you didn't understand it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Did I read Obsidians before? Oh, I got a cramp. Some will remember you.
Yeah.
Some won't. You have no control over that.
And then Ariel said, exactly. And be remembered for being kind to animals too. You'll always be remembered for how much you love puppies. All the puppies.
Yeah.
All anybody has to do is see you for a minute, walk down the street, and anyone knows that.
I don't see the person.
You don't see people.
I see the leash
just
holder.
See puppies.
But I see puppies.
Yeah.
And they're all puppies, no matter how old.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So this part down here.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the icing on the cake. It's
the part about where
the problems you made or the problems you solved.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, I spent the earlier part of my life being part of the problem, right? And it took me sobriety, and it took me learning a lot to understand that a mission to have in life is to be part of the solution.
Well,
or part of any solution, and not part of a problem.
Ultimately this is reputation.
It becomes your reputation for sure.
Right, because in the kink community, the BDSM community, how does this pay it forward? And that's what it boils down to. You will be known for the problems you made or the problems you solved.
Well, that's exceedingly applicable to the lifestyle when we talk about things like, because we're so focused on consent in our community, right? Like, so, you know, when people honor their
consent and resolution.
Consent, how they handle it when it happens, because we're always going to have something, right? We're always going to have times where we misunderstand or we're misconstrued, or someone gets accused of a consent violation and all it really was a misunderstanding. And so how did all that get handled? And how something a little bit more nuanced than you were either this or you were that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that for me, that's more of a conscious thing, like self-conscious thing. The problems I'm making or the problems I'm solving.
Right.
And how does that affect the fabric of the community?
Right. Oh, Samantha, I like that you're someone who learned from mistakes. That's a good one. I think some of this, though, problem thing is about awareness, right? At the earliest part of my adulthood, I would have been remembered for the problems I made, but I was unaware. I thought I was going through life trying my best, and I also had a lot of victimhood going on in that, like, well, you would do what I did if you had my problems too, but I wasn't even aware enough to know that that's how I was thinking.
Yeah.
Right? It took me a while. It took me into my 30s to be able to move out of that kind of victimhood that left me in the position of being able to, contributing way more to problems than to trying to figure out how to make things better. Like one of the phrases that I keep hearing around lately is, like, even in business, is no one's coming to save you, right? Like, no one's gonna, and I think that in my late teens, early 20s, I kept thinking that somebody or something was gonna sweep in and save me, and somehow it was gonna make everything magically better. And there's nobody to do that. Nobody's gonna save me.
Except you.
Except me, right? And so then the question becomes, do I want to be the problem? Do I want to continue to have my life revolve around the problems that I make and living with them? Or do I choose to have my life be about how to find solutions for things and be in that solution? And that's a conscious choice. It's a conscious choice that you can only make when you're aware that it's a choice to be made.
Bear Brute says, I would like to think people would remember me as someone that is genuinely me and not fake.
Yeah, that's the authenticity piece. Right?
Grace put, that's where restorative justice enters the chat. There was a consent violation, now what?
Right.
And it's tough because I believe in the processes of either transformative or restorative, or I believe in the concepts, but the execution of the concepts rarely happen.
Yeah.
We have our community conduct policy that we have in place for our events that
we make available for everyone in the community to please make them be part of your events. Like it's like we have no corner on a market of trying to have a system that works for everyone to try to get to the root of what's really happened and what is the best and highest minded course of action with the best outcomes for the most amount of people.
And that brings me back to the problems you made and the problems you solved. It's like someone reached out to me recently about conflict resolution between them and someone else. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll chat with them. And I reached out to them and they were like, yeah, I have no interest in resolution.
Right.
Which is cool.
Your choice.
It's your choice. And what it tells me is that you're aware and you're open and willing to talk about it up to this line, to say, I'm not there yet. As opposed to slinging mud at each other. Right? But the idea was to show up and say, these are the problems. What's the resolution? And what are we going to do about it? So ultimately, we have to be the arbiters of our own solving.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to save you.
Right. And yet, at the same time, like you and I put work and effort into trying to help people with some of this stuff, right? Like I can't save anyone, but I can create an environment in which you can save yourself.
Exactly.
Right? And that's the thing. It's like you may be someone who's been accused of being a consent violator. You may even be in some way guilty of what you've been accused of. But did you do it on purpose? What, the look on your face?
X-Men quote. This is from author Asper Reynolds.
Yeah.
X-Men quote. I loved. There is no love without sin. Love is measured by what you can forgive.
Yeah.
Was that Charles and Magneto?
Charles Xavier, Magneto, yeah.
That sounds like something between them two. guess that comes from with advocacy and communication skills too, right? Yeah, it all takes work.
Yeah.
It all takes work. The thing of you saying no one's coming to save you is the thing, right? No one's going to come with a golden ticket. No one's going to come with the answers.
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler, awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like it's imperative. It's imperative that you expand your vocabulary. Simply for the fact that you can describe and articulate, you can articulate a lot better of the needs, the wants, the communications, the failures, like anything that needs to be exchanged. If you build your vocabulary, you'll hit the mark much more. And personal drive to do it.
Yeah.
Someone said, admit your rights and admit your wrongs.
Yeah.
Admit everything, good and bad. It's like you have to come out.
There's a transparency that comes from self-awareness, right? In order to be able to admit your rights and admit your wrongs, you have to be aware of them. And that's a big piece for a lot of people. You, I think, have always had maybe a level of self-awareness that I think it's harder. Like, there are people who are literally can't see a thing. And usually it takes some sort of jarring life event for them to even become aware of what they're not aware of, right? That's a thing. On the love thing, what I wanted to go back to is I was once taught that love isn't necessarily that I love you despite your shortcomings. It's I love you because of your shortcomings. I love you with your shortcomings. I know what your faults are, and I love you. Not that I love you, except for your faults.
And that comes back to the unconditional love yesterday.
Right.
Which was fucking amazing. All right, so Obsidian, you had one more thing. I kept thinking that the problems that I identified were important to everyone. They weren't. That was, dude, listen, man. That's something I'm still unlearning is that not everyone has their head screwed on. I mean, not everyone thinks like me. And then Obsidian goes on to saying, I had to decide that the problem that I was being accused of was worth it. Being the problem to some was the answer to others.
That's true too.
That's good, bad, or indifferent, right? That's the fabric of reality. That's just how the dominoes fall at a certain point. Because I agree with that. I agree with it. I agree with the statement.
Yeah.
It's their shortcoming if they're not willing to find an answer bigger than their need for a boogeyman or for peace.
Yeah.
It's like they'll only carry that bag as far as they need to in order, as long as it doesn't affect them, there's nothing to think about. And that's the hard part about this stuff.
I think a lot of thing about this question, how do you want to be remembered? The flip side of it is then how are we choosing to live? Right? How I'm remembered is going to be a direct reflection of how I choose to live.
Yeah.
And if I've been...
And how you're remembered.
And if I've been less than mindful up until now, I have the opportunity every day to learn more, become more mindful. And I thank God, because I am such a work in progress. I really did have fantasies when I was much younger that by the time I got to the age I am now, I don't know, I thought I'd be levitating on a mountaintop somewhere, having it all together.
By the time you hit 30?
Yeah, that's it. By the time I hit 30, thanks. No, by the time that I got to here, right? Like I was 60 in June, and I have no idea.
35?
35, yeah, that's it. I'm 35. By the time I got to here, I don't know what I thought, but I really did, when I was much younger, have some fantasy that I would have it all together by now. I would have learned all the things, and I'd know all the things, and I'd be like some sort of font of wisdom and yada, 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 yada.
If you were living life to fit in boxes, absolutely. Right? If you were living a life that had benchmarks that are the social norms, career, children, property, blah, 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 blah.
Maybe that's
right,
where
because
that
then you're
comes
filling
from.
out boxes and you're like, okay, I've succeeded. I've got all the boxes.
I've checked all the boxes.
Right? Versus there are no fucking checklists.
No.
Right? And the succession...
And I think that's part of the process. You grow up thinking that being able to check those boxes is what is valuable. And then you get to a certain point in your life where you realize that that's not the value, right? The value is some of these other things we're talking about. In order to be authentic, in order to live freely as yourself, means being willing to not check boxes and consequently not have clear benchmarks about what it means to be X, Y, or Z.
And you know what's funny is none of these are social markers. None of these are about income, class, race.
Nobody cares about being remembered for how much money they made. When it comes down to it, even if people live their lives like they think that's the most important thing, most studies have shown by the time someone's near death and on their deathbed, they are not wishing that they had made more money. That is not the thoughts that anybody has, pretty much, by the book. People, if they have regrets, it's about that they didn't spend more time with loved ones, that they didn't tell more people they cared. It's the 4 questions in your book.
The 4 things that matter most.
The 4 things that matter most, right? That's what people think about. You know, what relationships have I left unresolved? Where did I not say I love you? Where did I not say thank you? And where did I not say I'm sorry? Those are the things that people ruminate or cogitate on when they're in their final days. It is not like, oh, I wish I'd gotten that last promotion at work. Like, that's not what people are thinking about.
Yeah.
But we live our lives sometimes as if it is. Right? Exactly. It comes from internal values rather than external aspects. Yeah. Happiness comes from inside. And then externals are an add-on. Like you always say, the cherry on the cake. Cherry on the... Icing on the cake. Icing on the cake.
Cherry on top.
Cherry on top.
Thank you, Bear.
Thank you, Bear. That's sweet. Favorite quote, what other people think of me is none of my business. Absolutely. And you know what the flip side of that is? What I think of you is none of your business. And that's important to me. I learned that one. I used to run around thinking that if I had a bad thought or feeling about you, I was somehow compelled to come and tell you about it, even if it like made a mess of things. Until one day I realized that what I think of you is none of your business. Like, unless you come to me and ask me and you care what I think of you, it's not my job, or even it's not even the right thing to do to run around and tell you.
There's problems you're making, problems you're solving is very fucking impactful, because it's like in that scenario, the problems you make versus the problems you solve. I can come over to you and tell you you're a fucking piece of shit scumbag who gets promoted because you don't do any government work. Or I can say, well, this is a total opposite of opposite behavior, is when a person's doing well, compliment them. Right? So it's like the people will get the compliments, and the ones who aren't getting the compliments, that is enough to know that you aren't doing enough.
If only self-awareness existed equally amongst people.
No, and it doesn't have
But
to.
I do think that you're right. Like, you can cultivate in someone a sense of their being someone who solves problems by complimenting them when they do that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
When you see someone doing something that's part of a solution, then you compliment them for it, so they get the feedback that says that thing, you're doing the right thing.
It's like the bus. There was a bus here rolling up, or was it on the next block, and someone was chasing the bus, and I'm like, sure as shit the bus isn't gonna stop for this person, because that's what these fucking drivers do. I gotta make the next dude open the fucking doors. It's gonna take you 30 seconds. You're gonna be stuck at a red light anyway, right? So anyway, so he stopped and he let the person in, and I waved him down. I gave him a thumbs up, right? Like, that's awesome, because
no, those little things. I used to take a train at 3:30 in the morning to the city when I worked at 6 o'clock in the morning, and on the same train was the ones that speak, those are the conductors on the MTA. This guy was so positive. I had never been on an MTA train where the conductor spoke positively and told you what the next step was going to be.
And you remember those guys.
I tracked him down because they're in one car or another. On these 10-car trains, they're on one car or another. And I made it a point to like track him down and tell you,
They made an impact because it's like taking up space. Right? Imagine how many people he set off on the right day, on the right foot, just based off of how jovial or communicative or friendly or informative he was on the speaker. Right? It's like you can amplify and you can create problems, or you can solve problems.
Yeah. And on the flip side, I also think too that
And you can create problems, or you can solve problems.
Yeah. And on the flip side, I also think too that we can somewhat encourage people away from, like there's a lot of police officers around here because of the neighborhood that we're in, and sometimes they're down in the train station and sometimes they're not.
And 99% of the time they're not doing shit.
And 99% of the times they're not doing anything. But every once in a while, I'll see one that by a look on their face or the way that they're holding themselves, I just feel like they need a little encouragement. I just feel like they need to know that it matters. I think some of what gets those guys down, the ones that are more sincere, I think can be just an overwhelming sense that it doesn't matter what they do, that it doesn't make a difference, right? Because the problems are big, the people, the challenging people will always be there, and does it really matter what I do? And I know you have a very different opinion about law enforcement, but sometimes I feel like I can make their day just by thanking them for being there.
And I've done that, regardless of my views on them. When I've seen them doing shit, that's what you're here for. I compliment them on doing their work, right?
And I thank them so that they know that it matters to me. Because sometimes just their presence does make a difference. Just the fact that they're, even just to me, if it's that time of day where it's a little sketchy on the train platform or up on the train station, and I know that just their presence creates for me at least an added sense of safety, an added sense that I'm grateful for that. Even if they're doing nothing more than standing there in their uniforms, an added sense of safety, an added sense that I'm grateful for that. Even if they're doing nothing more than standing there in their uniforms, it creates an added sense of safety, an added sense that I'm grateful for that. Even if they're doing nothing more than standing there in their uniforms, it creates a presence that keeps ill doers a little less likely to want to do ill. And for that, I'm grateful.
Gotcha. Yeah, no,
Just
listen,
like that.
I hear you. Because New York's the wild fucking West. We're back in the 80s. If you haven't been in New York since the 80s, it's the same thing, except with taller buildings and cell phones.
And for those who don't know what
New York since the 80s, it's the same thing, except with taller buildings and cell phones.
And for those who don't know what was New York in the 80s.
Google that shit. Yeah, New York was New York, man. That's where. Anyway, all right. So we have 4 minutes left.
Did that hour went fast. Tomorrow we're going to talk about 2 moments you'll never forget in your life. What are they? Describe them in great detail, and what makes them so unforgettable. This is like a combination of how do you want to be remembered and one act of kindness where you show.
The idea behind all these questions is for a person to understand how they navigate life, so that you understand your value as a human being. When you're negotiating, when you're connecting with potential play partners, understand your worth, understand where you're negotiating from, understand the value of your space, of your time, of your presence, your experience,
knowledge.
Understand the value of your space, of your time, of your presence, your experience,
knowledge.
The self-reflection. When you build that up, do you find it's also kind of a filter? It filters out the people who aren't doing the work pretty fucking quickly. But it gives you a sense of weight within the relationship. What I mean by that is you know that you have a better understanding of where you stand, and you are more comfortable speaking your mind because you have the language to speak it. Right? When it comes down to character, what you want out of life, what you want out of people that you engage with in life, how you want to engage with them, how they want to engage with you. And doing these questions, you become aware of those answers, and you observe all of this stuff in other people around you. And that's how a person gets better at speaking their mind, advocating for themselves, drawing boundaries, being able to articulate boundaries.
Yeah. That's a big deal, right?
So,
that's a big deal. TikTok doesn't have enough typing space for that question, for the question for tomorrow, which makes me think, can people DM us their answers in advance?
Yeah.
Their thoughts and feelings? DM your answers to the questions in advance, and we'll have them here to talk about them. Why don't we do that? You can go to the website, you can go to kinkcollective.net and email me. Email me the answers to your questions, and I'll have them here for tomorrow. That's the way to do it. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Filter
Yeah.
everything out and be yourself in a positive manner. Yeah, it's like truth as compassionately as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, compassion's important.
Because you can do hard truth. You can be one of those hard truth guys, but then you'll be remembered as a hard truther. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah. But there's ways to do hard truth, and then there's
Yeah.
like, like telling somebody a hard truth in such a harsh way that they can't do anything with it. How productive was that? When you can give somebody a hard truth in a way they can accept it and gives them the opportunity to make changes.
Hard truths come as the final straw. Like, listen, this is what the fuck you're doing, and it is dumb because of A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. From this point on, this is all your responsibility because Y and Z. From this point on, this is all your responsibility because Y and Z. From this point on, this is all your responsibility because Y and Z. From this point on, this is all your responsibility because
People are going to want to push on it. And my job is to show up and continue to say, oh no, that boundary's right here. And because once a boundary's set, if I then let you cross it, what did I set it for?
yeah. Obsidian, no, exactly, 100%. That is my can I fuck with you line though, right? It's like, are you willing to do the work and change? If not, I can't fuck with you because I'm not going to hear your same problem twice.
Sometimes you'll hear twice, but not a third time.
Not a third time. And that all depends on who it is.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
it's like, yeah, no, listen, I'm not trying to change anybody, but don't waste my time complaining to me if you're not willing to do something about it.
Right. It's because because don't ask me for advice and then not take it
And don't vent to
and
me.
then come back to me again, and then ask me the same, like as if I'm going to have different advice for you this time. Like your question, your problem, your whatever is going to have the same solution from me that it had last time. And if you weren't willing to do it then, if you're willing to do it now, just run right off and do it. You don't need to ask me about it.
There's a difference between venting
From me that it had last time. And if you weren't willing to do it then, if you're willing to do it now, just run right off and do it. You don't need to ask me about it.
There's a difference between venting and processing versus complaining.
Yes.
Like someone close to me complains about work and where they live and blah 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 blah, and it's like, well, have you thought about getting a new job? Have you thought about leaving the city? Have you? Oh well, but listen,
Yep.
there's nothing I could do for
Oh,
you.
did you see that big heart?
That was a
Somebody
big
put a
heart.
crazy heart.
A puffy heart.
Was that the puffy heart? Thank you,
All right.
Master
It
Hurricane.
is
All right,
102.
it's already 102. Oh, look at it again. Yay, thank you.
Thank you guys, Obsidian. Always a pleasure.
Yep, thank you guys. Thank
Ariel on Instagram.
Fatally yours. Thank you. All of you guys. Thank you so much.
And 6.
Good to see you.
Thank you guys so much.
See you tomorrow on Zoom. Tomorrow's question is the moment you'll never forget in your life. Describe them in detail and what makes them unforgettable. That is a lot to put in a text line on this social media. So go to, if you feel like it, go to kinkcollective.net. There's a how to email us and give us your answers. Do it before like 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. So go to, if you feel like it, go to kinkcollective.net. There's a how to email us and give us your answers. Do it before like 11 o'clock tomorrow morning so I can pull them up.
2 best memories. Why? There you go.
Yeah, 2 best memories. There you go. Have a nice day, you guys. Thank you.
See you guys tomorrow.
Bye.